Hello everybody, how are you doing today? I hope you're doing well and I hope your reading is going well. We have a very special video today because we will be finally revealing the book club schedule, the syllabus, the reading program for 2023. It's time to announce what great books we will be deep reading as a community together, and I'm so excited to share this with you. It's been rather difficult to keep it under wraps, but it's been a truly fantastic year, and I would like to take a moment to say a huge thank you to all of the Hardcore Literature Book Club members. I am so grateful for all of you. Thank you for making this such a magical year, a year filled with love and kindness and growth and personal positive change. We now have an incredible library of lectures and guided readings and discussions around the great books. We have added some truly extraordinary literary masterpieces to our personal canons. The books that we will continue to reread endlessly across the course of our lives. We have covered our pages in ink. We have filled up our journals. We have fallen in love with characters. We've learned that great protagonists in literature are very frequently reflections of elements of ourselves, and so we have learnt to understand ourselves better, and through that self-understanding we have improved our relationships with others, with the world around us. We have found that these literary masterpieces have been sent here to teach us something that will help us on our own hero's journey, on our own character arc as we move forth through life. We have truly lived these great books, and they have provided us with comfort, companionship, and wisdom. Together we have read, lived, and learnt to appreciate great works of literature from the likes of Shakespeare, Austen, Eliot, Joyce, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Emily Bronte, Marcel Proust, Samuel Richardson, Victor Hugo, Mary Shelley, Melville, Cervantes, and many more. It's been truly magical, deep reading with such a kind, thoughtful, friendly, warm group. The Hardcore Literature Book Club is a really beautiful literary oasis. We have readers from all backgrounds, all walks of life, all professions, all ages, all cultures, which has resulted in some really nuanced, beautifully nuanced group discussions around these great books. And it truly does feel like a family now, a bookish family. And many members have now told me that following a deep reading program like the one on offer at the Hardcore Literature Book Club has resulted in some really exciting, tangible effects. Their studies have improved, regardless of what area they are studying, or their work has improved. Members have told me that they feel more fulfilled. They feel a greater sense of contentment and happiness, drive and ambition. Many have told me that deep reading great literature has improved their relationships with other people and improved their relationship with themselves. And ultimately, many have told me that following this deep reading program has resulted in a greater sense of meaning. And so, going forward into 2023, we are going to continue to capitalise on these great gifts that literature has for us. We are going to stride boldly forward, and we are going to experience some incredible growth. Intellectual, emotional, and spiritual growth. This is going to be a year of enormous positive personal change. And so we are going to deep read together some incredible books that have explored and informed our understanding about the human condition. By the end of the year, you will be more well-read than 99% of the population. And remember that being well-read isn't about quantity, it's about quality, it's about depth, it's about living the books. Thank you again for deep reading great literature with me. Thank you for making this such a profound year, and let's get into the schedule for 2023. Our tour through great literature starts off strong with a sweeping, epic Russian saga. It's Leo Tolstoy's 1867 War and Peace. Now, War and Peace certainly fits the criteria of one of those books that everybody says they want to read. And it fits the criteria of one of those books where if you've already read it, you most certainly want to. In fact, you need to reread it. You need to read it deeply again. This is an endless book, and it is a masterpiece. War and Peace is truly a book to live rather than read, and Tolstoy does many extraordinary things in his works. We've already gotten to grips with Tolstoy's genius with our deep reading of Anna Karenina, and indeed that guided reading is still up, so if you want a real Tolstoyic immersion, then I would recommend you check them out too. Tolstoy does a lot of really extraordinary things with realism and estrangement, and he is deeply and endlessly profound. But one of the things that really impresses me is what Tolstoy is able to do with character arcs. We meet these extraordinary individuals in War and Peace, and many of them are manifestations of parts of Tolstoy himself, and therefore parts of us. We will see a lot of ourselves in different characters. But as we make our way through War and Peace, we live with these characters, we grow with them, and we change alongside them. War and Peace contains all of life, and ultimately it's a book about meaning. This is a really great one to read across the long term as you are undergoing your own personal change. And indeed, if you have found yourself wondering about the meaning of life, then this most certainly will be a great one to embark upon, because Tolstoy will be right there with you. War and Peace is also a riveting story, and it has a reputation for being difficult, but it's really not that difficult, especially when you break into it. Once you've broken into War and Peace, and we'll do that together, we'll discuss how best to do that, the only difficulty you will face will be putting it down. And indeed, this is most certainly one of those books that readers never put down. So this will be our winter read. We're aligning our reading with the seasons. This is our winter read. We'll be kicking that off in January, and my prescribed pace is actually a rather fast one. I would recommend 8 to 10 weeks. Now, bear in mind that many readers will take an entire year to get through this book, and if that's an approach that you find appealing, then I would highly recommend that you embrace it, or you embrace your own self-pacing. You could do a chapter a day, and that will give you ample opportunity to fall down rabbit holes, to explore different things, and to lace in other great works of literature too. But I would recommend 8 to 10 weeks, which is actually a fairly swift pace for this one. Again, adjust up and down as you see fit, but that's about 100, bit more than 100 pages per week. But we'll have one of the greatest works of literature clocked very early on in the year, and then we will be moving on to another masterpiece. Our next big read for the year, which will take us from winter into spring, is Dostoevsky's 1880, The Brothers Karamazov. This is another masterpiece, and quite simply, it's one of those books that you need to read. The Brothers Karamazov is another one of those heavy 19th century Russian classics that have a reputation for a reason. This profound work of literature is intensely philosophical and endlessly insightful about these all-encompassing themes of the human condition, themes that we will wrestle with, ideas that we will wrangle with over the course of our lives. The Brothers Karamazov is a favourite of some of the strongest, deepest and most influential thinkers. Thinkers and writers like Virginia Woolf, Cormac McCarthy, Freud, Einstein, Wittgenstein, Faulkner and James Joyce. This is another work where its difficult reputation precedes it, but once you meet the characters, and of course Dostoevsky's characters are incredible, they are walking, talking, living, breathing arguments. There's a lot of psychological complexity in Dostoevsky's novels, but he's also a really powerful, allegorical and visionary writer. Once you've met these characters, learnt their concerns and taken them on as your own, you will find yourself completely immersed in this story. It's not difficult to read, but the concepts you will be forced to wrangle with are difficult. And this one will demand a lot of cognitive power. It will demand a lot of patience, and it will also either challenge or strengthen your worldview and your beliefs. And indeed, that is exactly what we will demand of ourselves as we read through this one. We are going to be active readers with this masterpiece, and we will come out the other side changed and strengthened and ultimately renewed. This is a book that has changed the world and will continue to do so if we read it deeply enough and allow it to work its change upon the world through us. Now, of course, readers know that we have already tackled Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment together. If you haven't already read that, then I would highly recommend you contemplate picking that one up too, another great novel. But my prescribed reading pace for the Brothers Karamazov would be 6 to 8 weeks. And along the way, I'm going to encourage you to really embrace some of the arguments we come across, to really slow down and take time to digest everything. Again, I think that's a relatively fast pace. Many readers will take much longer, and that's not only absolutely fine, but something to be celebrated too. We want to read these books deeply, slowly, and we want to reread them, and we want to live them and allow them to work upon us. So that's my recommended pace, but of course add more time in as your proclivity to take the scenic route through literature demands. Now, let's talk about our next spring read. From April through May, we will be deep reading Virginia Woolf's 1928 Orlando. Now, this is my personal favourite Virginia Woolf, and that is certainly saying something, given how extraordinary she is. She has such an incredible body of work. But Orlando deserves a lot of love. So I would like to focus on this one and give you an extraordinary literary gift. And gift truly is the word, because Orlando is exquisite. It is intensely lyrical. It's melodic and visual, and you'll honestly find some of the most lush prose in the English language here. This is truly a poetic, magical work. As you can see, it's a very slim read, which means it will give us the opportunity to get nice and close to it. It may be slim, but it is extraordinarily resonant. As we read through Orlando, we will also be pulling in and appreciating some of Virginia Woolf's non-fiction, her essay writing. Indeed, Woolf is one of the greatest essay writers of the 20th century, and we will be seeing why. So we'll be bringing her own non-fiction writings to shine some light on her fiction and the literary tradition generally. Orlando is a satirical English biography that sweeps across the history of English literature. With Orlando, we get this wonderfully timeless and always timely social commentary. With Orlando, despite its humour, its colour, its lyricism, you'll see that there is a deeply felt pain running through this work. It's a pain that I connect with, and it's a pain that I think we all connect with. It's a pain that moves me very deeply. As you may know, Woolf's inspiration arose from her own romantic relationship with Vita Sackville West, and indeed Orlando is her love letter to her. That's how Vita's son described it. And we celebrate that by deep reading one of English literature's greatest modern writers. And like great modernist writers, Woolf here is concerned with overturning conventions. My recommended reading pace for this one is 3 to 5 weeks, and around the same time we will also be deep diving into some short stories. So we are assimilating lots of different kinds of literature, and we're going to have a special focus and appreciation on one of my favourite contemporary writers. So we will be starting the year strong by tackling some big novels, but then we will be giving some love to the short story form and Nobel Prize winning Canadian short story writer Alice Munro, a woman who has been called the Canadian Chekhov, a title that she has expressed happiness about. And indeed Alice Munro is Chekhovian, she's also Shakespearean, and of course she is also intensely Alice Munro, and she does a lot of really special things in her short stories. We will be using this deep dive to examine the mechanics of short form storytelling. We will be exploring the tradition of short stories and also doing some analysis and close reading of a volume of self-selected short stories from the author herself. Short stories that are all incredible for different reasons. The volume is called Carried Away, a personal selection of stories. Alice Munro packs so much into the short story form. She can put an entire life on a page, and so it's no surprise that she has revealed in interviews that she knows basically everything about her characters. She knows their entire history, and so when we read her short stories, we feel as though we are in the company, in presence with real people. They have a history that goes far beyond the compressed space dedicated to them. Alice Munro is also a master of subtext, like Chekhov, like Hemingway. She is incredibly subtle, but there is enormous profundity there. And if you read her closely enough, you will find that she changes how you view the world. Angus Fletcher marvellously called novels empathy machines, and that is such a brilliant way to describe novels. One cannot help but agree with him, especially when we reread the novels of George Eliot, Jane Austen, Leo Tolstoy. But we can say that truly masterful short stories are empathy machines too. Empathy machines in miniature, and of course the miniature contains everything. The micro contains the macro. And I think that's a great way to describe Munro's short stories. They are empathy machines. So we will be enjoying her short stories, we'll be pulling them apart, and of course there is a lot to pull apart with these short stories. Munro reworks her short stories relentlessly, in much the same way that a novel writer would work upon their novel. That's how much care and attention she gives to the short story craft. And as we study her works, we will be afforded the blessing of living more lives in one, and taking something of those lives into our own. Some short story writers give us stories that we shuck back one after the other, but I would implore you to give a lot of time and attention to each of the stories up for discussion. And so one short story every few days would be a really nice pace and a great complement to your wider and larger reading projects. Our next reading project is going to be something of a heart piece for me. Well, they're all heart pieces, but this one is really magical because we will be discussing a work that really inaugurated me to the world of fiction, really introduced me to this magical world of literature generally. So we will be discussing, from spring going into summer, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. When I was a little boy, my grandmother gifted me all 3 volumes, and I went and I took the book outside and I sat under a tree and I was spellbound. I was mesmerised. This was around the same time that I was discovering Dickens and Shakespeare, and so Tolkien was there too. Tolkien was a friend, he was a guide, he was someone who led me into the world of storytelling. I tumbled into this world of wonder, a fantastical world. And this is a journey that I return to again and again, and I would like to return to this journey with you. Specifically, we will be leveraging this work into an appreciation of Tolkien's philology. As you know, Tolkien was a master craftsman of languages. So we'll be discussing, where do Tolkien's languages come from? How did he construct them? We'll be celebrating his languages. We'll also be celebrating myth and world building. We'll be celebrating the tradition that Tolkien came out of, and we will be discussing quest narratives and the hero's journey. And so this is going to be a real passion series. It's going to be a celebration of literature and storytelling, myth and magic and language. Whether you're a lifelong Tolkien fan or you're coming to him and his works significantly for the first time, there's going to be something to celebrate and a lot to appreciate for everyone. Now for pacing, we'll have a special focus on the first volume, The Fellowship of the Ring, and we will have a scaffold and recommendations for those who want to go through the entire work. And our series, our lectures, will benefit both kinds of readers, those who want to get started on the first volume and appreciate the world, and those who want to read or reread the entire thing. Altogether, the 3 volumes are around the same size as War and Peace. And by this point in the year, you'll know that size is definitely no obstacle, no barrier. So it should be a very pleasurable journey. And then going into summer, our big read, which will take us from June through August, will be Alexander Dumas' 1846, The Count of Monte Cristo. I absolutely adore this story, and I think this will be a reread for many of us, but of course if this is your first time coming to The Count of Monte Cristo, then you're in for a fun adventure. We will be talking about serial reading and how the first readers would have consumed and experienced the story. As you may know, the original work was gifted to readers across 18 installments. We will be taking this story across 8 to 10 weeks, which is a lot faster than those first readers, but we'll be dividing it up in a way that we can reconnect with those first readers, which is something I'm very passionate about. And so we will gossip about the latest installment, like we used to do, like those original readers used to do, and ponder what's going to happen next. And everything that we've learnt about the hero's journey will apply to this story. In fact, this is a fantastic revenge narrative. It's historical fiction. It is an adventure. And Dumas laces some really profound wisdom along the way. It's another biggie, but I promise you, once you've broken into it, you will not be able to put it back down. After Dumas, our next big read, which will take us from August through to September, is Ralph Ellison's 1952 Invisible Man. This novel is a masterpiece of American 20th century literature, and to complement it, we will be exploring the writings of Ralph Waldo Emerson, whose philosophy of self-reliance runs through this work. We will be exploring Emerson, the man after whom Ellison himself was named, and we will also be exploring jazz. So we will have some listening exercises. We will also discuss the social issues explored by this work, issues around injustice. This is a book that, in its exploration of racial injustice, speaks to the human condition as a whole, and it has a very powerful message. This is another one about identity. It's another one that will be a comfort and a companion to those who have felt invisible. If you've ever felt invisible, then this book is for you. I would recommend 6 to 7 weeks for this one. That means a few chapters a week, which will also give you ample time to explore the non-fiction that we recommend, to reread and to listen to some great music. And around this time we will also be deep reading a great work of literature from Charlotte Bronte, the 1847 Jane Eyre. This past year we added Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights to the bookshelf in our hearts. And next year, as we slide into autumn, I would like to take you on a tour through her sister Charlotte's masterpiece, Jane Eyre. This is a really beautiful work. Masterpiece is the word. There is a wonderful central protagonist, and what we have here is one of the great Victorian novels. We will be contextualizing this one and discussing the social conditions of 19th century England. We'll be talking about social class and independence, gender, the Gothic, and much more. I would personally prescribe approximately 6 weeks for Jane Eyre, which would look like around a chapter a day for about 6 days out of the week. But as usual, feel free to go slower if you would like to embrace some of the poetic, non-fiction and personal growth side avenues we tumble down together along the way. Come October time, our next big read will be Milton's Paradise Lost. This will be our seasonal big read, and it will be our epic poetry big read. This autumn and Halloween season we read Bram Stoker's Dracula. The season previous we read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and what better way to celebrate the season than to spend some time with Satan and play through the story of the fall of man. Milton, along with Shakespeare and Wordsworth, is one of the titans of English literature. And so we will be talking mythology, theology and poetry, and this will be a real treat. And you mustn't feel daunted by this one either. Milton, it's true, needs a little bit of mediation today, a little bit of a guide, rather like William Blake. But with that guide, you will soon find a story that is vivid, sweeping, operatic, and sublime. There are indeed many moments in this epic that will awe you into silence. This is about as strong as English poetry gets, and we will enjoy it together as the days grow dark and chill. My prescribed reading pace for this one is 8 to 12 weeks. That's a book a week. It's dense poetry, but it's fabulous storytelling. With a guide and a strong knowledge of what's going on, this will be a truly pleasurable experience. And around this same time, our next autumn big read will be Thomas Pynchon's 1973 Gravity's Rainbow. This is a notoriously difficult postmodern work, one that secures some serious bragging rights for those who can make their way through it. Though I would say it's not the bragging rights specifically that make this work worth reading, it is an aesthetic and cognitive masterpiece. Gravity's Rainbow has been compared to James Joyce's Ulysses, another book club read, due to the sheer amount and intensity of its cognitive challenges. But I would contest that the thing that Gravity's Rainbow and Ulysses really have in common is that they're not as difficult as people initially think. At least they're not as difficult as their reputation would lead you to believe. You can read both of those books, and not only can you read them, but you can live them, and you can find yourself thoroughly moved by them and changed by them. And Gravity's Rainbow is poignant and profound beyond belief. There are passages that simply send chills through me. Now, Theodor Adorno famously said that it was barbaric to write poetry after Auschwitz. And certainly many thought that literature would suffer in the wake of the atrocities of the 20th century. But Pynchon has proven with this work that pain leads to insight and suffering forges great art. And this novel is Pynchon's poetic outlet. You'll also laugh a lot along the way too. That's something that this work certainly does have in common with James Joyce's Ulysses. And yes, it's densely elusive and of course elusive, but going on illusion hunts, that's only one part of the joy when it comes to reading Gravity's Rainbow. This one was written half a century ago now, but it continues to be ever relevant to us today. My prescribed reading pace for this one is 10 to 12 weeks. Again, that's a fast read. This is one of those works that many readers will labour over for a year or longer. So again, go slow, embrace your own self-pace, but this one will take us to the end of the year, and it will also overlap with a more readily digestible work of literature, which will be our Secret Dickens. So our Secret Dickens project will continue, and that means every year we read a new work from Charles Dickens. We give him a special author focus because I think he's one of the most perfect authors to read around this time. And so each year we add a new Dickens work, and we also reread reflectively A Christmas Carol. We reread and we relish, and we add a new Dickens to our personal canon. Last year we reread Great Expectations, my personal entrance to Dickens, and a really fabulous work. This year we are reading The Incomplete Mystery of Edwin Drood, and we are endeavouring to complete it together. And next year we will read, I won't announce it just yet. That remains a secret for the time being. Now let's talk bonus long-term reading projects, because there are 3 of those that we will be exploring and enjoying throughout the year. The first is a continuation of a project we have already started, and that is the Proust Project. Our Proust Project continues, our deep reading of Marcel Proust's masterpiece, In Search of Lost Time. And when I say deep, I mean slow. The Proust Project is an opportunity to indulge in some close reading exercises. And so we are deep reading that masterpiece literally page by page. Ultra slow, with the emphasis on your reading up ahead and then coming back to the beginning and baking your rereading, your journaling, your reflection into your reading. So it's a real backwards and forwards reflexive reading process that I think is really beneficial when it comes to positive self-growth and change. This is a project that emphasises journaling and tumbling down rabbit holes. The aim with the Proust Project is to give us a nice reminder that truly great literature cannot be exhausted and we cannot get to the end of it. Great literature is endless. It's a reminder of this idea from Rabbi Tarfon that the late great Harold Bloom turned our attention to. This idea that you are not required to finish the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. Another one of our bonus long-term reading projects will see us breaking into great drama beyond Shakespeare and seizing the opportunity to further align our reading with the seasons and to appreciate some really great plays. So we will have a new play appreciation for each season. A play for winter, spring, summer and autumn. And we'll be kicking off this project with our winter play, which is Aeschylus's Prometheus Bound. One of my all-time favourite plays. I love the mythology. I love how sublime this one is. I love how much of the human condition is packed into it. And we'll take this opportunity to discuss Greek tragedy, what the original performances would have looked like, the idea of competing for top prize, and how the influence of the Greek dramatists continues to be felt today. Our spring play is Ibsen's Hedda Gabler. This Norwegian playwright is considered to be the father of modern drama and the father of realism. A playwright who had a great many social concerns and would exert a very strong influence upon many great writers like James Joyce and Arthur Miller. The role of Hedda is one of the greatest dramatic roles in the world of theatre, and there is certainly no short supply of great actresses who have gifted us their interpretations, which we will enjoy together. Our summer play is Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest. This is a play that is getting a lot of love today, so you may even be able to catch a performance. Summer is a comic season, and so this one is bound to give us a good giggle. But of course, every great joke contains a profound truth too, and Oscar Wilde is certainly a master when it comes to that. Our autumn dramatic appreciation comes from German writer and titan of great literature, Goethe. We will be appreciating both parts of Faust, a work that Goethe laboured on across the course of his life. This is a perfect one for the season. So we'll be embracing this endlessly influential work, which will also give us a good opportunity to discuss a really fascinating area of drama, the closet drama. We will be talking closet dramas and performability. And along the way, we will be discussing dramatic theory from the likes of Stanislavski, Brecht, Artaud, and many more. And we will also have a really exciting year-long project called the Shakespeare Project, where we will seek to read all of Shakespeare across the year. We will continue with our deep reading of the sonnets, but across the year we will aim to read all of the plays that the Bard produced. This previous year we set our sights on a dozen masterpieces from William Shakespeare, and we gave them the deep reading treatment. We went really deep into his high tragedies, his banquets of blood, iconic and endlessly influential works of literature like Hamlet, King Lear, Othello, Macbeth, Antony and Cleopatra. We enjoyed his festive comedies. We read A Midsummer Night's Dream, As You Like It, Much Ado About Nothing, and so we went really deep. But in 2023, we are conducting an exercise in going wide. We've done depth, now it's time to do breadth. And we will be reading all of Shakespeare's plays in chronological order. And so, in this way, you will be given a template for your own special author focus project, a template that you can reuse. We've spoken before about choosing a special author that you will personally focus on, and we will be discussing how to do that, as well as doing that ourselves with one of the greatest writers who ever lived, William Shakespeare. And so you will receive the gift of all of Shakespeare in just a year. Indeed, one of the most profound reading years of my own life was the year in which I did exactly that, and I read all of Shakespeare in chronological order. This is something I've done a few times over now, and I would like to guide you through the process so that you can be moved in much the same way. We will kick this project off with a discussion on chronology and how we will establish the chronology, and then we will spend a marvellous year watching the aesthetic development of a truly great writer. We'll be enjoying political intrigue in his history cycles. We'll be appreciating the power of his tragedies. We'll be laughing at his farcical comedies, going on a journey through his pastoral romances, wrestling with the difficulty of his problem plays, and enjoying his poetry. And this is a remarkably achievable goal, despite how impressive it sounds. It actually doesn't take too long to get a single play under your belt, and I will be encouraging you to watch and listen to performances as well as producing them in the theatre of your mind. For this long-term reading project, you will also have an assignment, and the assignment is this: rank them. Rank and order the plays and the works of William Shakespeare as you make your way through them. Ideas of canonicity are really ideas of ranking and ordering, and the canon is like a memory palace. And in our ranking of works of literature, we commit them to memory, and we solidify their relation to other works that we have enjoyed. And in that way we also scaffold great literature onto our lives. So there's a real utility to ranking our works as we go through them. We remember that which we are forced to exercise judgment about. And so by the end of the year, you'll have a handful of plays that you would have given an A star to, or an A plus, an A, a B, B plus, B minus, or 10 out of 10, however you choose to rank them. And we'll talk about a ranking system that will be very valuable, that again you can take into other works. We'll talk about a criteria that you can use. And we'll talk about how to bring your own personal subjective preference into such a ranking and how to wrangle with that. And these works that you fall in love with will be your companions and friends that you will return to over the course of your life. And along the way, I will be prompting you to figure out why you like or dislike something. And in that way, we will be learning to be art critics, learning how to make the implicit, our feelings, our response, explicit, and how to convert opinion into knowledge and wisdom. It will be an emotional journey and a rewarding journey, and you will feel yourself changed for the better by the end of it. Plus, it will be pretty cool to be able to say that you've read everything the Bard ever produced. So there we have it, that's the schedule for 2023. I would like to once again say a huge thank you to all the readers of the Hardcore Literature Book Club at patreon.com/hardcore literature. I appreciate you deeply, and I'm astounded at the amount of love we all have for these great books. We are from all over the world, we're all different backgrounds, and there is no common thread other than the common thread of a deep love of literature. We have the most fantastic group, and there certainly isn't this level of love and deep discussion around great literature anywhere else. So thank you so much for keeping great literature alive. And indeed, if you are a newcomer to the Hardcore Literature Book Club, then signing up to the Proust tier will give you instant access to the entire back catalogue. We have so many deep dive discussions, lectures and talks centred around the great books at this point, and we have more ongoing all the time, and the discussion is always there, is always fruitful. My recommendation for new members is to focus on what intrigues you the most right now. What are you feeling pulled towards? If you like to read multiple books simultaneously, I recommend you pick one book from the back catalogue that really speaks to you and jump on with the current live read, and you will be warmly welcomed by me and the other lovely members. There is a downloadable printable schedule for our reading programme for 2023 at the Hardcore Literature Book Club. That's patreon.com/hardcore literature. Thank you so much for watching today, thank you for being here, and thank you for reading with me. I'm so incredibly happy that there are so many like-minded lovers of literature who are deeply interested in this self-scholarship and reading programmes that aim to make us happier, more mentally robust, better thinking, feeling human beings. So thank you so much for being here. I hope the schedule has made you as excited as I am, and here's to another great reading year. I'm Ben from the Hardcore Literature Book Club, and happy reading everybody. Bye bye for now.